Hi, today I'm going to be showing everyone how to make Shao Kahn's hammer from Mortal Kombat. To do this, all you're really going to need are 2 yoga blocks and 1¼ inch wooden dowel. So let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is make the hammerhead. In order to do that, we need to glue these together. So what I use to glue any project together or any foam together is I use contact cement. The way contact cement works is when you put it on, you have to give it a couple minutes to dry up and get tacky before you stick it together. But when you stick it together, it is going to stay together. So we're going to apply a coat on each block. Make sure you are pretty thorough when you put it on there, because you need to make sure it doesn't come apart. Just really make sure you get it all on there. If you need to put another coat on each side, definitely do that, because that'll really reinforce the bond. Alright, so now we are just going to let this go ahead and dry for a couple minutes and get nice and tacky. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and start sticking it together. So what you want to do is line it up as best as you can, because like I said, you're only going to have one real chance to glue this together. You're going to line it up, and you're just going to stick them together like that. Even if it's a little off, we're going to be sanding it down anyway, so it's not really going to make too big of a difference. So there's that glued together. Now that it's stuck together, we're just going to give it a couple more minutes to really make sure the glue sets, and then we'll start sanding it down. Okay, so now that the contact cement is dried, what we need to do is we need to sand down every side until it's flush. Now there's 2 ways you can do this. If you have a bandsaw, that's probably going to be the quickest route, but if you don't have that, a belt sander or an orbital sander will do. So we're going to go ahead and turn this on, and we're going to just start sanding it down. Make sure you stop every once in a while just to make sure everything's level, and adjust anywhere you need to. Once you've used the belt sander to sand everything down most of the way, you can go ahead and go in with an orbital sander and just kind of level everything out. Once you're finished sanding, next we're going to have to mark out the lines where the face of the hammer is going to go. So to do that, you're going to take a ruler or measuring tape or whatever you have. You're going to measure the length, and you're going to go about half of that. So got 5.5 inches. We're gonna mark it about 2 1/4 or 2 3/4. Once you have all your lines drawn out, next you're going to get back to the belt sander and you're just going to sand everything down to the lines. Alright, once you have all your sides sanded out, the last thing you really need to do for prepping is just cutting the actual hole out for the dowel rod to go into. So do that. In order to do that, we take our ruler and we measure corner to corner on each side. Once you find your center port, next you're going to take a drill with a 1 1/4 inch Forstner bit and you're going to drill right into it. Make sure that you drill straight down so the dowel rod goes in nice and even. Also make sure just to test it, just to see how far in it goes. I think we can get a little bit more. Go ahead and mark it every once in a while just to see how far in you really are. I can go a little bit deeper. Just a little bit, because you don't want to poke through the whole way. I think that'll do it. I think it might be a good idea to cut down the dowel rod just a little bit. So we're gonna go ahead and take care of that real quick. Okay, now that we have the hammerhead sanded down to the right shape, what we're going to be doing is adding all the details, which basically consists of 2 raised panels on both sides, the actual dragon logo for the Mortal Kombat games, and a spike at the top. So in order to do the raised panels, we're going to take some 2mm foam, which you can buy at most craft stores for about $1 for a single sheet, or you can go to a department store and buy like a 12-pack for about $5. We're going to lay it down, and we're just going to draw out the rough shape. We're just going to take this now and see how well that fits. It should be a little short on each side. So it looks like we need to just trim it down just a little bit on the top and the bottom. Otherwise, I would say this is perfect. Okay, that looks pretty good on this side. So now we're just going to take this, we're going to trace it out again and cut out the other side. So now we have 2 identical pieces, 1 on each side. So we're just going to go ahead and trace this on there real quick, just so we can see where we need to put the glue down. And you're just going to do the same thing to the other side. Alright, now that we have our side panels done, we're going to be making raised panels on each face. To do that, we're going to use a circle cutter from Cos Tools. Basically, it does exactly what it's called. It'll cut circles for you in foam if you're not great at it. So you just literally set it down and you twist. And the 2mm foam is not super thick, so you shouldn't have to spin it that many times. We're just going to do this real quick, and then each one of these has its own raised panel again, and for that we're just going to use the next size down. Alright, and we're going to do this again 8 more times. Alright, so we should be good with all that. Let me put that back on. Take that off. Now what we're going to do is we're going to glue each little circle onto the big circle. For that, again, we're going to use contact cement. Alright, so now that we have all the little panels fixed and ready, we're going to just mark them out where they're going to go on the sides. Okay, once we have everything marked out, we're going to just simply glue them right on there. Alright, and this should be the end product. Next, we're going to be actually working on the dragon logo. Okay, so we're almost done making the faces of the hammer. The only thing left is to cut out the actual symbol that goes on each side. And to do that, we're going to take a piece of 5mm foam, and we're going to use this circle cutter to cut out the appropriate size. So now we're just going to take a Sharpie and we're just going to draw out the main shape for the dragon. Alright, once we have it basically drawn out, we're going to go ahead and cut it out. there you have it. If you don't want to do this, you can absolutely 3D print this out if you have a 3D printer. Otherwise, all you're gonna have to do is just trace this onto your other piece and cut it out the same way. Once you have this symbol cut out, next thing we're gonna do is actually be gluing it onto the raised panel that we're making. But in order to do that, we need to find the center point so we know where to place it. To do that, we're going to take a ruler and measure corner to corner. Where the points intercept, that's where we're going to be placing it. So we're going to take it now and set it on there. We're just going to trace, and then you're just going to cut it out. Once you get all that cut out, it should fit right on in there. Yeah, looks perfect. And now we're just going to glue it right onto the hammer. Okay, so before you glue it on, we're going to just mark out real quick where the symbol's going to go so we know where to put glue. So you're going to line it up on there. You're just going to take a Sharpie and just really quick just mark it out. It doesn't have to look perfect because it's just going to be covered up with glue anyway. Alright, so then once we have that, we'll do the other side real quick. Alright, now we're just going to start gluing. Perfect. Now we just have the other side. Okay, so the last thing we need to do for the hammer is we need to build a spike that goes right on the top. And to do that, we're just going to be cutting out a bunch of circles out of foam, gluing them together, and then sanding them down into shape. So first we're going to start with the base. We're going to take a circle cutter, and we're going to set it at the 1-inch mark. If you don't have a circle cutter, it's fine. You're just basically going to cut a hole about 2 inches in diameter. So once you're done, it should literally only be about this big. It's only 2 inches across, and that's going to be your base. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to take some 10mm foam, and you're basically going to be just cutting out smaller circles that just average in. So that's all that's left. Once you glue it onto the little circle plate we made, just glue it right onto the top, right on the center. Alright, so now we're officially done with the hammerhead. Next we're going to move on to working on the actual handle. Now that the hammerhead's done, all we need to do is make the handle. And for that, all we need is the wooden dowel and some foam. We're going to take a sheet of 2mm foam and we're going to just line up about half of the wooden dowel on it. And we're going to just figure out how much we need to actually make. You're going to take it and you're going to roll it on the edge and you're going to mark it where the foam meets. And then we're going to just make a straight line. So now that we have all of our lines marked out, we're just going to cut it out. We'll do a test fit to make sure everything fits properly. All right. Okay. You have to be very careful when you glue this on, because the second the contact cement makes contact, you're going to rip the foam trying to take it apart if you mess up. So it looks good, and if you notice, there's still a little bit of an overage, but you can easily fix that by either just taking a knife to it or just dribbling it down later. It's really up to you. So for the bottom part of the handle, we're basically going to be doing the same thing, except with just a little bit thicker foam. So we're going to do this with some 5mm. You're basically just going to repeat the process. Alright, so now we're just going to glue on the bottom part, making sure we place everything where we need to right away. If you have a little bit of overage, that's fine. You can just take some contact cement and put it on the edges, let it dry, and just kind of glue it together. So we have a lot of the foam on for the handle. The last thing we need to do before we start really adding the details to all this is making the pommel. Alright, so next we're going to do the pommel, and for that we're basically going to do what we did for the spike on the top of the hammer. We're going to cut out a bunch of circles, glue them together, and then use the Dremel to shape them into about an orb shape. And then we're going to make another spike that go on top of that. So we have the shapes of the pommel cut out, so we're going to drill a hole through this one in order to be able to put it on the actual handle. And we're going to use another Fossener bit, but this one we're only going to use a 1-inch. You're going to go very slowly, because you're not going to have a lot of wiggle room on this one. So we're almost done with the pommel. Now we just have to actually attach it on. And we're going to just be using some 5-minute epoxy. And we're just going to go and knock it out real quick. Okay, now we're going to use a Dremel to just clean up some of these lines, try to even that out a little bit, and maybe even try to even it out at the end. So this is really starting to take shape. So all that's left is we're going to add a coupling right here, and we're going to be wrapping some 2mm foam along this handle to kind of give it a grip look. To make the coupling, we're going to take this measuring tape and we're going to just wrap it around right here just to figure out how round it is, so we know how much foam we need to cut. Looks like it's about 4 1/4. We take some 5mm foam. We're just going to measure out 4 1/4 inches. You're going to be doing the same thing for the couplings in order to get how long you need to cut it for the decorative panels. So it looks like about 5.5. We'll say 5.5. And that's going to be for these two. For that, we're going to be using 2mm foam. So now we're just going to do the same process for these thinner panels with the 2mm foam all the way down the handle. Okay, so we have everything glued on, so now we're just going to take the Dremel and real quickly just kind of sand down all these seams just to kind of hide them a little bit better. Once you're done with the Dremel, next you're going to take a heat gun and just go over the foam with it. This is going to seal the foam and open up any cuts you've made on accident so you know where to fill them. Alright, once you're done sealing it with the heat gun and everything's open, you're just basically going to go over it with some quick seal adhesive chalk just to kind of really fill in any gaps that you could get out. Now we'll let this dry and then we're going to go ahead and start painting. In order to paint the hammer, I use Plaid's FX Flexible Acrylic Paint. It's perfect for painting EVA foam and 3D prints. For this particular project, I use 3 colors. For the handle, I use charred root. For the couplings and part of the pommel, I use gold coin. And for the hammer, top part of the handle, and the spikes on the hammer, I use chainmail. The charred root goes on very nicely, and I can get most of it on in 1 to 2 coats. The gold and silver, which are more metallic colors, take a few coats to go on, especially going over darker colors. All in all, I really like this brand. I feel like you get a lot for the price, and it comes in a variety of colors.